What's up, Met fans? Stefan here from Meet the Mets fans. We're back on a brand new episode. This is episode 29 now, Justin? Getting real close to 30 episodes since we started this whole thing. Welcome back. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, man. What's up, Met fans? We had a busy week of baseball, and it is nice to get back into the swing of it, right? Literally. I will say, though, after watching a week of spring training, I'm ready for the regular season. I'm watching guys like Nolan McLean dominating, and I'm like, yo, let's just go. Right? Like, why can't this actually count? I think that as a Met fan and a baseball fan, spring training is so long. I know it's only been a week and we still got a couple of weeks left, but it's an exciting time, no doubt, for sure. So I think we're gonna sit here and we kind of break down some of the major things that are going on here.
Yeah, I wish the guys can be ramped up and ready to go. And honestly, I wish I was watching more of it, like actually watching it. The games need to be televised in a way where fans can watch at least like a portion of it. There's so much of these games this year, particularly, that are not being televised. The Mets have a channel.
I know.
We have SNY. Why aren't they just being broadcasted? Stick a cameraman behind home plate and have them record everything, which they do, right? Like, that's there because you can find clips on YouTube after the game is over or on X as things are like popping up. Broadcast it, put it on your channel. Like, let Met fans be able to see what's going on here.
I know, like, why am I watching Juan Soto hit a double to left field yesterday, and it looks like it was like my fifth grade cameraman on it. Like, the quality was atrocious. I don't understand how a major league team, the Mets, they spend close to $500 million a year on this organization, is not just willing to just broadcast this entire production in spring. Clearly, baseball fans are into it. Clearly, there's a viewership. Like you just mentioned, SNY is legitimately it's Sports New York, but it's a Mets station, and they're broadcasting 12 spring games. I understand there's not a high viewership, but still, again, these clips that we should be watching, like our Nolan McLean's, our Juan Soto's, it shouldn't be looking like a fifth grader is recording with their cell phone, okay, to watch these guys. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I'm totally with you.
Yeah, I just don't get it. What else is on SNY that's being watched at 1:00?
Yeah, it's Thursday at 1:00. Put the game on. I understand viewership will be low, but there's no way whatever SNY is
It's
showing.
already low. That's my
Yeah,
point. The
whatever
viewership
they're
is low. No
showing on
one's watching
Thursday
what's
at
on
1.
SNY.
It's got to be a joke, total joke. But
All
you know
right,
what?
well,
Hey, yeah, that's maybe we'll reach out to Stevie. Well, I know no, Stevie doesn't even own it. It's the freaking Wilpons, right? They still have control of SNY. That's the issue here. We got to get Stevie to start buying SNY. That is what the issue is right now. These Wilpons are still having the hand in what the Mets do, and that's a problem for me.
yeah, I hear you. I hear you. All right, so we're dealing with it, Met fans. We're trying to keep up with as much as we can, obviously. Diving into the box scores, looking at what's on YouTube and X, and trying to get these games compiled and come up with some type of analysis of what's taking place in this game and keeping track of what's going on. And that's primarily what we're going to try to do on today's episode with you guys. We are going to highlight the last 5 days of baseball from the last time we had a podcast episode to today. And kind of going through the starting pitchers, the players that stood out to us, what the bullpen is looking like, and starting to see this team start to take some type of shape.
Yeah, before we get into the actual games, I think the big news that came out this week was Lindor. Obviously, Francisco Lindor, he had surgery on a hamate bone injury on his left hand. His timeline is pretty tight for opening day. It's a 6-week recovery that they have over here. And I guess there's a little bit of good news. He got stitches out of that surgical hand that was repaired 1 or 2 days earlier than originally anticipated, which again, what does that mean? It doesn't mean anything. It means that there's no setback in my eyes. But, just to give a little update with Lindor, he got his stitches out. His recovery looks like it's going as planned. They talked about how they're going to start ramping up some baseball activity in the next couple of days. And so I think that's a positive. It's nice to hear he's ahead of schedule versus hearing, hey, we had a little delay. There was whatever the case may be when you're dealing with these types of injuries.
Yeah. I mean, it's great news. 2 days earlier, a little bit of ahead of schedule. Like we said when we originally talked about Lindor and potentially being out, take it easy, right? Make sure this thing is completely healed up. But he must be feeling real good because I saw a video of Francisco Lindor playing cricket. To those of you who don't know what cricket is, it's kind of like baseball, right? They play with a much harder ball and they throw the ball on the ground and you hit the ball with a flat bat and there's two batters at the same time who run back and forth. He's not actually playing in a game. He's kind of like doing cricket BP with an actual professional cricket player who's then doing baseball BP, and he's using a bat and swinging it. So Francisco must be feeling real good if he's doing that right now.
I wasn't anticipating this podcast for us to deep dive into the game of cricket, right? But our fans, this is what you get on this pod. You never know,
You
right? Like,
never know.
by the way, the listening ownership for viewership, Stefan just had two of his fingers just pointed up in the sky as to indicate the two sticks that the cricket players do use. So, yeah, that was a good visual representation, my friend. All right, let's jump into it though. Let's get into some real baseball, right? Nothing against cricket. Cricket is cool, right? It's just, not really the American pastime that we have here over in the United States. We're going to dive right into, again, games that don't count, but what's happening within those games definitely do count for a lot of these players because it's going to be a huge impact on what decisions the Mets ultimately make with their roster.
Yeah. Now, so overall, the Mets right now are 4-2-1, and I'm not sure if in baseball we track the one in spring training, and the one at the end is like a tied game in spring training. These teams are all looking at this as warm-ups, practice. They're not looking to dive into extra inning games, and so one of those games was a 6-6 tie with Houston, and then they just kind of called the game from there. So the Mets, 4 wins, 2 losses, and that one tie. Specifically in this week, 3 wins, 1 loss, the one tie. Doesn't matter, Justin?
I mean, it matters in the sense that, it just shows, I think, that the Mets have a deep farm system, right? Because when after you get through the first 3-4 innings, it's pretty much guys that are not going to make this club, designated first assignment, or they're going to be down in the minor league. So I think it's just, a combination of, so the Mets have a good roster for the major league, but they also have a lot of depth in their minor league system. And so, it doesn't matter. No. Do I want to see the Mets winning? Sure. Right. Like, I think that, starting in spring training, I'd rather not be going 0-16 or however many games they actually play there and starting the season off by saying like, man, we haven't had a lot of wins recently.
Yeah, I don't ultimately think that wins and losses matter in spring training. It really doesn't, because the games don't actually count, and that's what we mean by it doesn't matter. But I do think there's something to say about feeling like a winner, right, and walking out with a winning culture kind of being established out of spring training, that we're not just going to go out there and accept losing, and we're trying our best in these games, which clearly these guys are, because some of these guys are trying to earn jobs while other guys are out there trying to develop their stuff and get ready for the season. And so, a lot of these games end with pretty much all the minor leaguers playing their hearts out, trying to show something to the major league team, and those guys are playing well. So let's jump into the first game, February 23rd. Clay Holmes took the mound against Toronto, 4-3 win for the Mets. Clay is a pitcher that we're going to rely on throughout this season. We expect him to at least replicate what he did last season, and if not, be able to build on top of that would be great. So Clay had 4 ups in this game. He threw 3 2/3 innings. He gave up 2 earned runs, walked 2 guys, and the 2 earned runs came in the second inning. A home run by Okamoto, a guy that we talked about a lot on this podcast, that Toronto ended up signing over from Japan. And Okamoto clocked Clay Holmes for a 2-run shot in the second inning. I kind of like that happened in the second inning, and then you got to see him bounce back in the third and then go back out there in the fourth inning and
Yeah.
get 2 more outs.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, Okamoto, they said, is a talent. That ball was stroked to center field. Okay. This guy might be the real deal. We'll see like what's actually going on with him. But I thought what's nice about Clay Holmes, and it's very similar to what happened last year, is that he's built up already. Clay Holmes going into the last offseason, they talked about how obviously they're transitioning from the bullpen into the starting pitching role. And Clay Holmes took that and pretty much prepared all offseason to stretch himself out. And pretty clearly, he stretched out already by throwing almost 4 innings, which is not really common for a first opening start. Normally, guys are throwing maybe 1, maybe 2 innings, but as you just talked about, he had 4 ups in this game. And so, like, that matters, right? And so he's already kind of stretched out. I know next week he's going to be going to the WBC where he's going to be throwing there. So I'm sure he got himself ready and stretched out a little bit further to try to prepare for that. One of the big bugaboos with Clay Holmes is the walks. And so at 3 2/3 innings, he did have 2 walks. That is what is going to limit Clay Holmes and his success this year. It's what plagued him last year, is his inability at times to throw strikes. And so for Clay Holmes to take that next step, he's really got to try to locate his pitches better. He's really got to try to battle in. Even when he falls behind those 3-1 counts, he's got to try to battle back because those walks are, I think for him, he's got the stuff that's all right. but those walks are going to be the killer for him this year.
Yeah, he's got to limit those. I'm not sure if this is like a bullpen performance that I want to highlight from this game. It's kind of a starting performance as well. Another guy that we're looking at stretching out as a potential starter. Our guy Tobias Myers also threw in this game. He threw two and a third innings.
I think it's I think it's 2 1/3.
2 and a third innings in this game. I got to check it real quick. But shutout ball. Allowed 3 hits, no walks, 3 strikeouts in this game. Tobias Myers did a really great job coming in relief in this game, but we know that the Mets are trying to stretch him out and get him to being at that level of a starting pitcher in the event that somebody goes down in spring training. We've got Tobias Myers ready to take a starting pitcher role for this team. And he looked good. He looked strong.
Yeah, it was 2 1/3 for sure with Tobias Myers. And again, what that kind of shows to us is, number one, Tobias Myers is making this team opening day, right? That was clear. Mendoza talked about it. Obviously, they made this trade with Milwaukee over the offseason. Tobias Myers was a big piece of that. But more importantly, what they saw here is that Tobias Myers can pitch out of the bullpen once again. This was not a game in which he started. This is the role that he is going to have. And to be honest with you, if you have a game like a Clay Holmes, who maybe this is not an uncommon line we saw last year for Mets starting pitching 3 2/3 or 4 1/3. And then you got a guy like Tobias Myers that can give you 2 1/3 or 2 innings of solid relief work that is coming in after the starting pitching. That is really, really going to be an important role for Tobias Myers. And, we saw the success there. That is not an easy thing to be doing for a pitcher, is that ability to fluctuate between, am I a starting pitcher or am I a reliever? Do I got to get ramped up before this game, or can I get ramped up in the middle of this game? And Tobias Myers has proven that he can do both of those things. And I know that is one of the reasons I believe that David Stearns really targeted him with this trade and really wanted him, is that ability to fluctuate between a starting pitching and a relief pitcher.
Yeah. With you, Justin. And then another relief pitcher who looked really dominant, a guy who's getting a lot of buzz right now coming from him, is Ryan Lambert. And so we haven't heard a ton about Ryan Lambert coming into this spring training, but now that he's here, he's making his presence known. So Ryan Lambert threw an inning. He looked dominant in this inning. He's throwing the ball with gas. And there's a lot of buzz coming out of spring training about how hard this guy throws. People are saying to have a closer on their hands with this guy, Ryan Lambert. He looked solid. So what did you think about Lambert, Justin? And then were there any other offensive standouts to you in this game?
Yeah, if you watch Lambert, what he does is that in between each pitch, he drinks a raw egg. So if you watch him, he takes a step off and he just chugs a raw egg, and he says that he thinks that's what makes him throw harder. No,
Yeah,
I'm
they
just
used
kidding,
to
but
have rosin back there. He removed the rosin bag and replaced it with just a tray
he's
of eggs.
Yeah, he's got a carton of eggs back there, right? And so the Mets got to get fresh eggs for this guy on a consistent basis. If you haven't seen, apparently Ryan Lambert talked about how he drank like 1,000 raw eggs in the hopes that it would start making him throw harder. And whatever he did, it worked. This guy's pumping in 99, 100 already in spring training, but he's been someone in the minor leagues that has consistently done that. And Mendoza talked about it in the presser afterwards, and he specifically mentioned Ryan Lambert's name and how good he looked and how he is going to be someone that is going to have a role on this club in 2026, whether that's going to be starting this season at the beginning of this year with this club or at some point. Obviously, we saw that Syracuse train going on last year. Ryan Lambert is definitely going to be a player for the Mets, and he's going to hopefully have a big role for us. I know that Sid talked about Christian Scott being the closer for the Mets at some point this year, but who knows? This guy Ryan Lambert might be. In terms of the offensive stuff, a lot of the starting actual starting players, right, didn't really play in this game. We saw a kid like Morbido, who the Mets protected in the Rule 5 draft this past year. He's a speedster guy, but he's someone that is pretty exciting. He's in the Mets definitely top 15 prospects. He had a nice RBI single. And MJ Melendez, who, I know this is now February 23rd game we're talking about, but this guy the other day just hit 2 home runs, and he had a nice game again. He had an RBI double. He is someone that is making his case to be the opening day right fielder, or at least on this roster, whether that's in a utility role or just on a bench role. But he is someone that he definitely came to spring training ready. He understands that there's a role here, and I'm excited to see what this guy can do.
Yeah, Melendez is competing for two types of spots on this roster. Obviously, one spot, but two roles that he could have. He could either win a job as the starting right fielder, beating out Carson Benge for that position, or Carson Benge can get that job, and MJ Melendez can end up as a backup outfielder on this team, who has the ability to play catcher and other things that we've talked about in the past. So keep an eye on MJ Melendez. We're going to take a look at that entire right field competition a little bit later on in the pod, so stay tuned for that. Justin, a guy that stood out to me here that we're going to talk about when we talk about a potential outfield spot on this team is Cristian Pache. Hit a solo home run in this game, and stay tuned for us as we break down the rest of these games. We're going to keep talking about Cristian Pache and what he's been doing so far in spring.
Yeah. All right, the Mets played the next day, right? February 24th against Houston. It was that 6-6 tie, which is not common in baseball to see that. I know we're not playing soccer over here, but we definitely want to highlight, we had a starting pitcher, Jack Weniger, who, going into, again, this spring camp, he's someone that is probably going to start the year in AAA, but he's a top 10 prospect for the Mets. And he looked like it. He threw 2 innings, right? 2 hit ball, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts. He's like Jonah Tong, he's like best friend, right? All of these guys are super close down there. But Jack Weniger is someone that I think we got to keep an eye on. He looked really good. I watched that, or I took a look at the box score for that Houston game, and Houston had a lot of their starting players, especially in the top of their lineup that was starting for them. And Jack Weniger, he pitched really well. He looked good against those guys.
Yeah, he's going to be an exciting young prospect to keep an eye on. And when you're wondering, Met fans, why the Mets are not super interested in signing starting pitchers to long-term deals, it's because of guys like Jack Weniger, who the common Met fan had not heard of until going into this spring training. This guy's making himself known to you because he's a guy that's going to be on this major league team sooner rather than later. So keep an eye.
Yeah, I'm totally with you, right? You got Weniger, you got Tong, you have McLean, you have, guys that are just littered throughout this minor league system. And I know that for a lot of fans, minor leaguers, it's a scary proposition to say, like, we're going to rely on this guy. But listen, these guys got to come from somewhere. And if you can acquire these cheap, young starting pitchers that are not already past their prime and you're not paying for what they've already previously done, that's what David Stearns and the Mets are looking to do here. So these are guys definitely to take a look on. In terms of, guys,
real quick, prospects are prospects. But if you've got 7 of them and 3 of them hit, 2 of them hit, that's 2 of your 5, right? And so the Mets have a slew of these arms that we should all be excited about. Go ahead.
Yeah, no doubt. In terms of the bullpen, Oscar Brazoban, I know he is not the sexiest name. I know he is not someone that the Mets, like, you look at, you're like, oh man, this guy is elite. But he is consistent. And I think the Mets got to, and fans got to give this guy a little bit more respect. He was damn good for us last year. And, he is someone that we saw can actually start games, right? He was an opener for the Mets last year a lot of times. We saw him attempt to close games, not his forte. Let's call a spade over here, but that's not something that I don't think that we're going to be relying on. But Brazoban's a guy that also can throw multiple innings. We've seen Brazoban last year. He was a guy that was able to throw 2 innings or go into the second inning, have 2 ups in a game. And, he threw an inning of relief with a walk and a strikeout. But again, that's someone that looked pretty good. And when we're looking at the 26-man roster and we're looking at bullpen spots, I know Brazoban's got options, but I think that is someone, Stefan, that we got to look at a little bit harder and say, he might be on this roster.
He's going to have to make his case, right? We've talked about it. I do think the veterans that don't have options are going to have a leg up over a guy like Brazoban because of that option. But if he keeps going out there and being dominant, he's going to force the Mets' hand to have him on this roster. And that's what he's got to go out there and do. But Brazoban is going to contribute to this team no matter what, right? David Stearns talked on an MLB network press conference about opening day specifically and whether or not opening day is actually a big deal. And he essentially is like, yeah, it's a big deal, right? It's a mile marker. It's a moment that if you can be on that roster, it's an important thing. However, it's just one day. And it's going to take an entire 40 to 50 man grouping to win a major league season. And so he said, I spoke to all of our guys and explained this, that if you don't make that major league team on opening day, the likelihood of you being here and contributing to this team is going to happen. And Oscar Brazoban, for a fact, is going to be a guy that contributes to this major league team, barring any kind of injury.
Yeah, no doubt. Stefan, anything for offensive in this game with Houston?
There were quite a few offensive players in this game. So pitching wise, there was like everybody else who threw in this game is a long shot to make this team. So we highlighted those guys, but offensively, a lot of guys that potentially could make this team that are going to make this team had some contributions that we'll highlight. Marcus Semien got a double in this game, which is nice to see. An extra
Good.
base hit from Marcus Semien, putting the bat on the ball. He's been batting leadoff in a lot of the games that he's starting in so far in spring training, and
Yep.
he's looking pretty damn good. Bo Bichette had an RBI in this game. This is the same game that we all saw that highlight. I know you all saw it, Met fans, of him making that barehanded play. He cuts over in front of the shortstop, grabs the ball barehanded, and whips it across the diamond. Looks real good.
Yeah, this dude thinks he's a shortstop still. He literally thinks he's a shortstop still.
Yeah, he's gonna get that. Gotta get that mind. That ball is right in front of the shortstop, who's fielding it right in front of him. Cuts across him, picks the ball up barehanded. The important thing is he showed range. He showed an arm on that play, which has been in question, and he looked damn good.
Yeah, I hated that. I'm going to be honest with you. I hated watching that. There is no reason in the second or third spring training game of the year for you to go a barehanded play. It is so easy for you to jam your fingers, get injured on that play, to get a recording out in a meaningless game against the Houston Astros. I watched that. I was like, is this guy kidding me?
You
Not
can't,
necessary.
Justin.
Not
You played
necessary.
baseball. You played baseball. You know that in the heat of the moment in the game, you can't be like, "Oh, it's spring training. I'm not gonna go." This is a guy that goes hard. He plays the game hard, and that's important. And you can't in the moment be like, "All right, I'm not gonna do this right now because it's spring training." You know that.
Yeah, I tell you right now, if Lindor was there, he'd be like, yo, don't ever cut in front of me again. Right? Like, yo, who do you think you are?
That's the point I was making. Is that's not your ball, but it's nice to see that you can get to it.
No, it was a good play. Again, I know we're worried about his defense. He is someone that clearly works hard. And Bo Bichette is not someone that is going to just taking this third base position and saying, I'll try it out. I'll see how I do. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. This guy doesn't want to get embarrassed. I don't want to say he's on a contract year, but essentially he's playing potentially for another contract. He can opt out of this deal after this year. He's looking for another big time, long-term contract. And if he can now show himself to be a successful third baseman, it just gives him even more options. So I think he's going to be playing his ass off this year. And I'm excited to see Bo. I watching him hit. He's different. He just has a different approach at the plate. He's not someone that is just gunning for that home run. Watching him taking the ball to the other way, getting his hands even on the inside pitch, getting his hands inside that baseball, punching it out to right field. So he's someone that I'm really excited for this season.
Mike Tauchman hit a 3-run home run, first inning of this game. It was a shot. He is making his case as well for why he should be getting that starting right field job or the last outfield spot on this bench. And he made his presence felt in this game. And then another guy, Ronnie Mauricio, that we've talked about on this podcast a lot, hit his first spring training home run. And I'm telling you guys, it's going to be one of a few that we're going to see this spring.
Well, I'll tell you right now, again, I hate to keep bashing on this guy, but Mark Vientos, he hasn't had a hit this spring training yet. And again, I know it doesn't matter, but it matters in the sense that if Ronnie Mauricio is batting 400, which he currently is right now, that's going to be a case of, like you just mentioned before, hey, he's going to be our guy that we're going to be utilizing, and we might trade Mark Vientos because Ronnie Mauricio is just producing, and he earned a spot. Even though he's got an option left, he's someone that the Mets are going to view as a potential. So Mark Vientos, I know you're about to go play for Nicaragua in the WBC. I hope you're successful. I hope you do well there because you need to get your butt in gear, my friend. You need to get your butt in gear.
I'm with you. It's 300 for what it's worth, but he's crushing the ball. 3 for 10. All right, let's jump into the next game, Justin. So February 25th, the Mets the Mets lose 6-0 against St. Louis. This was Jonah Tong's start. And Jonah Tong is a guy that we're very much expecting to start the year in AAA. He's a guy that's out there who I think recognizes that barring injury to a couple of guys, it's going to take several injuries for Jonah Tong to make the major league team out of spring, that he's going to start the year in AAA. And I think he's got the mindset of going out there and working on his stuff and developing pitches. So Jonah started in this game. He threw 2 2/3 innings. He let up 3 runs. And that box score, when you look at it, looks like, oh man, this kid, he might not actually have it. But when you actually saw the game and watched him pitch, he threw 2 scoreless innings to start this game, went out there, and then he gave up a 3-run home run on 1 pitch, right? So he gave up 3 runs on 1 pitch. Granted, the box score is the box score, right? The line is the line. He went out through 2 2/3 and gave up 3 runs. But I did feel a lot of positives coming out of Jonah Tong's start.
Yeah, with Jonah Tong. So a lot of times with spring training, these guys they're tinkering with pitches, right? And they're seeing what works, what doesn't work. And Jonah Tong in this offseason is attempting to develop a cutter. And what led up to that 3-run homer was a cutter that he threw to Nolan Gorman, who hit a shot. And Nolan Gorman is a guy that is a all for nothing guy. He's going to hit his 25 home runs. He's going to strike out his 200 times this year. And so he that cutter honestly didn't really play well in this game. It got hit pretty hard, but that's what spring training is for. This is a guy in Jonah Tong that I don't believe, and I'm sure the Mets have went to him and said, you really do not have a rotation spot currently right now. You're going to start the year in AAA, but let's see if we can develop a really successful third pitch, because that's what Jonah Tong is missing right now, is a dominant third pitch. And for the major league club, you can get away with it in the minors having a good fastball and a good changeup, but you really need to have a third pitch as a starting pitcher. And so we'll see if this cutter, again, it's the first time he's throwing it in game action. I'm not saying it's not a good pitch or a successful pitch. It got hit pretty hard in this game. A lot of the analytics show that it really didn't play that well. That doesn't mean that he's going to get rid of it. It just means that, hey, that's a purpose of spring training. And so I wouldn't look at that line and freak out too much. Again, that 2 2/3, when letting up those 3 runs, he's definitely tinkering with pitches such as that cutter.
Yep. In this game, other bullpen performances that stood out, 2 guys for me. Luis Garcia, who I'll give his credit to. I know that I haven't spoken too highly of Luis Garcia on this podcast, but he went out there, he threw a scoreless inning and got a strikeout.
Yeah.
So I identified that in the box score and thought we'd highlight that Luis Garcia threw an inning.
I think he's going to make this squad, man. I think he's going to make this squad.
Probably. And then Albert Alzolay threw an inning. And Justin, I wanted to talk about that a little bit as well. This is a guy that I think is going to be one of those 40 to 50 guys that end up contributing to this team at some point this season. Hopefully he sticks around if he doesn't make the major league team. I kind of think that he will, because the Mets can have done right by him, right? The Mets gave him a contract last year, rehabbed him through all of last year. And essentially they're not saying they don't believe in him. They're just saying he needs time. And so David Stearns pretty much said that.
Yeah, David Stearns was on the MLB Network doing an interview, and they talked about Alzolay, and he essentially said he's going to be starting this year in the minor leagues, barring like crazy circumstances where all of their top relievers get hurt and they have no one to do. But essentially, he talked about how this guy just needs to accumulate more innings. He hasn't pitched a lot. When the last time we saw Albert Alzolay he was with the Cubs, and he was their closer, essentially, and he had a pretty good season. And he had Tommy John surgery. He missed the last 2 years now, essentially. And so Alzolay is a guy that the Mets, as you just mentioned before, they signed him to a 2-year contract. They rehabbed him. He's someone that's been in this organization now for the last couple of years. They clearly know he's got talent, but there's someone that they're saying we're going to start him in the minor leagues and get him some innings before we get him into the major league club. And we alluded to this at the beginning of this podcast and talked about how the opening day roster, it matters. Those 13 pitchers that are going to be on this club at the beginning of this season obviously are really important. But there's going to be, the Mets, I think, through like 46 pitchers last year or something crazy like that. It was a record. I know that.
They set the record.
Yeah. I know they set a record. So David Stearns has I don't want to say a quick hook, but, he's got someone that he's willing to kind of move guys up and down throughout the minor leagues. And so Alzolay, get your innings in, get your work in, go down to the minor leagues, dominate down there, and then help this major league club at some point this year.
Yeah. 46 pitchers the Mets threw last season.
46.
Set the major league record.
Yeah, I know. Crazy. All right, offensively. I don't want to say it's Carson Benge game, but it was the Carson Benge game. Okay, I know that this guy has been someone that we have talked about a lot this offseason. David Stearns has talked about this guy a lot. Carlos Mendoza, we mentioned this in the last podcast. What does this guy got to do to make the opening day roster? He went 3 for 3. So we look at the box score and we say, cool, check number 1 box. He had 3 singles. Which is he driving the ball? Not necessarily in this case, but what was really nice to see with Carson Benge in this game was that all 3 of those hits came with 2 strikes. And he fell behind a lot of times in those counts, right? There was 1-2, right? 2-2 in those accounts. And he battled back. And Carson Benge went on an interview after the game, and they talked about that. And he was like, I don't like to strike out. And so he clearly has a different approach when it comes to 2 strikes. I don't want to say it's similar to Juan Soto. No one is similar to Juan Soto. But Juan Soto changes his approach when he has 2 strikes. We see that when Juan Soto has 2 strikes, he no longer has his foot turned, right? His right foot turned, okay, in terms of trying to create that torque. He chokes up on the bat. He tries to put the ball in play, and that for him was a game changer. Carson Benge has a similar concept in terms of his approach to the plate. He's essentially saying, I don't like to strike out. I want to put the ball in play. Sometimes good things happen, and this was happened with Carson Benge. We had that first hit was a little dribbler down on the infield to third base that he beat out. But his second hit was a stroke to left field that he took the ball the other way, did a really nice job with it. And then his third hit was a ball in between first and second base that kind of sneaked through. But again, it's about the approach that he has with 2 strikes and someone that wants to put the ball in play.
Yeah,
Stefan, what do you think of that?
he hates it. That's what
Yeah.
he said. "I hate striking out." Right? Like,
Yeah,
it was like a kind of like out of nowhere, right? Like, "What's your approach there?" He thought about it for a second. He's like, yeah, I just hate striking out." Yeah, that a little bit of passion from that young man. I like it.
I love it.
He
Yeah.
looked good. He looked good, and the Mets are gonna give Carson every opportunity to be the starting right fielder on this team. He will have to be bad for MJ Melendez or Mike Tauchman to take the position from him, right?
Yeah.
And right now he's doing his thing and he's working hard and if it's not about the box score, it's not about getting 3 hits in a game, it's about that approach like you talked about, Justin. So I'm with you. I think he's gonna likely pull out this position if he can continue to put the bat on the ball and then bounce back on days where he doesn't put the bat on the ball.
Yeah, well, obviously, I was talking offensively, and this was the game on February 25th. But this last game with the Freddy Peralta start, we're going to talk about in just a moment. Carson Benge also had a diving play in right field that he wound up saving a base hit from. So I don't want to say one of the questions, but Carson Benge a lot last year played center field, and we obviously right field is the position that is open right now. But we also talked about how Carson Benge is really familiar with right field. The majority of his playing time in college was right field, and so we saw a diving play from this kid in right field the other day. Made a nice catch on that ball. That is a plus. Our right field last year was -12 defensively last year. And so if we can get a guy that can be a real standout in right field, we obviously know his arm is elite. But if Carson Benge is someone that can kind of control the outfield successfully, that's just another checkbox for this kid. And so that was something really nice to see. It's not just about hitting matters, but it's really nice to see that kid.
Yeah. Just another name offensively to pay attention to, Vidal Brujan, who's a guy who has a shot to make this major league team. Got 2 hits in this game. Nothing fancy, nothing crazy. Not going to dive into it all that much, but highlight Vidal Brujan getting 2 hits in this game.
Yeah, I know that he stole a base. He got injured on the play. He removed himself from the game, but he was back in again a couple of days later. So he seems like he's totally fine. I know he's vying for a spot. He's been hitting well again this spring training as well. So he is someone that and there was an injury to another potential shortstop replacement for Lindor if he's not available on opening day. So Vidal Bruja is someone that is definitely on the bubble for this opening day roster. So we'll see what takes place there. All right. I feel bad taking this one because I know how much, like you literally texted me the other night. You're like, yo, you want to do a pause? I was like, oh, I think we're going to wait till after the Freddy start. And you're like, I know, but I just want to talk about this kid because he's so good. He's so elite. And what we're talking about is our boy, Nolan McLean. So I got to give it to you, man. So we're going to talk about the February 26th game. It was a 5-0 win with Houston. Go into the Nolan McLean start. Go ahead. Let me hear you.
Do it. I'm dying to do it.
I know. Yeah, you have to do it.
So so Nolan McLean threw in this game, Justin, and he looked like what was promised, right? He looks like the guy that finished last year, picking up right where he left off. The Mets really could. He's ready. He's ready mid-season form. This kid. He threw 4 innings in this game, 4 complete innings, 4 ups. He struck out 6 in that time. He threw every single pitch, and I'll throw up a graphic right now for all our visual audience to see that I saw on MLB .TV. That this
Crazy.
graphic for our listening audience shows all of his pitches and all of the different ways he threw those pitches for strikes throughout this game. He is dominant, guys. This is the guy
So
that
good.
was promised, and Bet fans are going to be really excited. His fastball hit 98 miles an hour, sinker at 96 miles an hour. Nolan McLean is ready to go in this season. What are you thinking, Justin?
I don't know. I don't know what to think with that. Like last year, we watched this kid. Now, again, last year when he got called up, I mean, he was at 150 plus innings in total for the year, and so it is possible that his velo dropped a little bit at the end of last year. I don't remember this guy throwing 98 with his fastball. I don't remember his sinker averaging 96. Like when we're talking, like it didn't just hit 96. We're talking on average, it was 95.8 on his sinker in this start. And Nolan McLean talked about at the end of last year how he felt really good. And essentially, he didn't take any time off. He took like a week off from throwing, and he said he just continued his off-season prep work about a week and a half after the season ended, and which is for him, again, we just talked about how it's not really common practice that in your first start, you're throwing 4 innings. But for this guy, he talked about how good he felt, and he continued throwing, and he was able to throw 4 innings. And by the way, he let up 1 hit, which was a leadoff hit in the first inning, and then he retired then every guy after that, right? Did not let up another hit since that. And so he was dominant. He looked great. he is as advertised. I can't get too excited. It's a spring training start, but we saw his 8 starts last year getting called up and how good he was. He made the WBC as a pitcher, again, that only had 8 starts, guys like Google and Skeens making this club, and then you got a guy like Nolan McLean. I think it just shows you how much, like, it's not just the Mets view him as a potential, has all of baseball views him as a legitimate potential starting pitcher that can be really dominant here.
Yeah, he's the leading candidate right now, projected to win Rookie of the Year, and he's projected that way for a reason. And Nolan talked about being this ready to go kind of because of the WBC as well, right? Knowing that he's leaving on Sunday to go to the WBC, Arizona. They're going to have a couple of exhibition games before they start this tournament up. And Nolan talked about what the expectation is for him in the WBC, which I think we should highlight for fans. They pretty much told him they expect him to throw at least 2 times, right, in actual games in the WBC, and in a piggyback role. So he'll be coming in relief of some of these guys, whether it be Scooble, Skeens, Joe Ryan, who these other guys are, and that's what he's expecting to go and do, is to be in a piggyback role at least twice, and he's ready
Well,
to do that.
imagine going Skeens to McLean. Like, that's crazy. Scooble to McLean. Like, that's nuts. Good luck, WBC. That's going to be an exciting thing. I know, like, yeah, does it matter for America? I don't know how much like the WBC like really matters, but for a lot of these Latin American countries, this is a big deal to these guys. Juan Soto went out, like texted a whole bunch of them, was like, "We got to do this, right?" Like Manny Machado, Fernando Tatis, all of them were like, "Yeah, like we got to represent our country." And so these guys definitely take it serious. It was really nice to see, Noel McLean saying like it's an honor essentially to be like invited to the World Baseball Classic and for America at the age that he's at. It's not really common, which is why he accepted it. And let's just cross our fingers, right? That he stays healthy. That's the only thing that matters. Another guy, Robert Stock, threw in this game. He actually looked pretty good. He threw 3 innings, 1 hit, 6 strikeouts in those 3 innings. Robert Stock listen, he has not had a successful career. Okay. Like I don't want to like call a spade a spade. He is not someone that we're looking at to say like, oh yeah, this is a guy that like has been super dominant before. He has not. Last year he threw for Boston. He threw 2 games in there and he has not pitched since 2022 in the major leagues. I think he threw in the Korean League a couple of years ago. Again, he's just another name. We talked about how the Mets used 46 pitchers last year. He is someone that I don't believe is going to make this opening day roster, but if he goes down to accepts a minor league deal, maybe is someone that it will be used in some capacity. He clearly can do multiple innings over here. He threw 3 innings and he came out of the bullpen and he looked pretty good there.
Yeah. Offensively in this game, a couple of standouts. Bo Bichette picked up another double in this game, looking good, continuing to hit the baseball. And Marcus Semien hit his first his first spring training home run. Marcus Semien hit his first spring training home run of the season. Continues to look good in that leadoff spot.
He does, man. He looks really good. Marcus Semien, if he can stay healthy, I think we'll have a really nice bounce back year. I know he's been down for the last 2 years, but he's a professional hitter. He is someone that it's not just he's been good. I mean, this guy was like top 3 in voting in MVP a couple of years ago. Like that's how good this guy can be. I'm not saying that he's going to be an MVP. Like, please don't hear what I'm not saying over here. But I think he is someone that can be a guy that can move the line and someone that is a professional hitter in this lineup.
And then Tyrone Taylor, probably not making this team as a starter, but a very competent bench piece for the Mets to have. He is a great 4th outfielder to have who can start on a game and does have a little bit of pop. We've seen it from time to time and showed some pop in this game. 3-run shot in the 2nd inning. Tyrone Taylor looking like he's ready to get things going for the Mets as well.
Yeah, Tyrone Taylor is going to make this team, right? Like that is for sure. He was basically our starting center fielder last year, which was pretty scary to say. But Tyrone Taylor, he is someone that any type of injury, he is someone that we trust, someone that's going to go out there, is going to play really good defense. Again, his offense is definitely weak, which is why the Mets went out and got Luis Robert. I forget how we're pronouncing it just now, but I'm going Luis Robert. But he's definitely going to make this club. And that's been, when you look at like David Stearns and his like transactions, Tyrone Taylor has been one of the more successful transactions that David Stearns has had. One of the longer tenured guys for the Mets has been Tyrone Taylor. under the David Stearns regime. Let's call a spade here. So,
It's true.
uh,
It's true.
all right.
Tyrone Taylor hitting the ball real hard in spring, though. I can tell you in spring training when we were there, he's one of the guys we saw live BP for. He clocked the ball there. The sound off of
Wow.
that, he's hitting the ball hard. He does. And we don't need him to be a home run hitter. Just go out there and put the power on
No,
the ball.
why not? Maybe he made some adjustments. We'll see. All right, our next one. This is going to be our last game we're going to be talking about, and I think it's an exciting one because it was our Freddy Peralta start. We're recording on Saturday morning, so it was yesterday, February 27th. 14-3 win by the Mets. But more importantly, Freddy Peralta was perfect through three. He had 9 up, 9 down. He had 3 strikeouts. He looked great. When I say three, perfect. Again, we had the Carson Benge diving play in right field. I know that
That's
the
how
the
perfect
shortstop.
happens.
Yeah, no doubt. I know there was a couple of nice defensive plays, but he looked great. He looked as advertised. And more importantly, he came out of that game feeling good. He had 3 innings. These guys are like, I don't want to say they're ramped up a little bit more than I remember. I feel like when we dive into spring training stuff early on in the season, it's usually this guy threw an inning, this guy threw 2 innings, maybe. But it's really nice to see that this guy threw and got through 3 innings with really no hiccup. And so these guys definitely came into spring training ready to roll and ready to go. Really nice to see Freddie.
Yeah, and a lot of these guys, Freddie included, was that they were in spring training a couple of weeks earlier than they were expected to be, or even a couple of days earlier than they were expected to be. So they might be just a little bit ahead of the game. Freddie was officially named the opening day starter by Carlos Mendoza right before, I believe, this game started. They named him,
Yep,
or was it
he
right
did.
after, right before?
Yeah, it was right before it. Yeah, so Freddie Peralta it'll be Skeens versus Peralta opening day for the Mets. I believe the Mets are kicking off the MLB season that day, right at 1 o'clock. I know that they got moved. It was a 3 o'clock game. They're now going to be playing at a 1 o'clock game. It will not be viewing on SNY, which I know we're all like annoyed with. Okay, like we're not going to see our guys, in the booth. Freddy Peralta, yeah, he deserving so. He got traded for a reason to the Mets. The Mets gave up big time prospects because they know that this guy he's elite. Is that he will be their ace going into this season for sure.
Yeah. And Freddie Peralta was asked after the game about
Yeah.
the extension talks with the Mets. Let's jump into that real quick. Freddie said no comment and then gave what I can't help but describe in any other way as like a cute giggle afterwards. He was like laughing, giggling under his breath when asked whether or not extension talks have started.
And like, hey, listen, if the Mets and Freddie have not been talking, I think he would have been pretty honest about it. There would be no reason to lie. He would have said, no, the Mets haven't approached me. Me and my agent are looking to go into the offseason as a free agent. I don't know if we're going to be signing an extension. The fact that he was like, no comment, and he had a huge smirk grin on his face is clearly that the Mets and Freddie are at least trying to work it out. We're not sitting here saying that it's going to happen definitively. There is going to be an extension. But once again, the Mets gave up some premium prospects. They gave up 2 top 5 prospects in their organization for a guy that is technically a rental for this year. And so it would make a lot of sense for him to sign an extension. He was also asked, is opening day like the deadline for it? Because I know a lot of guys when they go into the season, they say, if I don't have a contract by opening day, I want to focus on the season. I don't want to think about that anymore. Freddie Peralta was like, no, like that's not true. Like I'm willing to like still talk throughout the year. It's not like a hard deadline. So he's clearly open to an extension. I don't think that this is a guy that's saying like, I have to go into free agency next year because of like how valuable I'm going to be on the open market. But clearly Freddie Peralta and the Mets are at least discussing this possibility of an extension. And I think every single Met fan would feel a lot better about the trade that they made this offseason if the Mets actually do make this extension with Freddie.
Yeah. If I'm going to make a prediction, I'm going to predict that gets done before we head into
Yeah.
the season.
I mean, if
The
you
look
had
and
to
the
predict,
excitement in his voice, it just feels like it's happening right now and it's going to happen soon.
I mean, what do you think? Like a 5-year deal? Like what would be like reasonable? I'm sure he's looking up. You had obviously Dylan Cease that signed a 7-year, $210 million in the offseason. And Dylan Cease and Freddie Peralta are pretty similar age, right? They have similar innings over the last like couple of years, okay, in terms of like being reliable. I can't see the Mets going 7 years on Freddie, but I would see like a 5-year deal as something that I think that the Mets probably want to do. And maybe that's the hiccup right now that they got to or the hurdle they got to get over.
Yeah,
So,
so Freddy Peralta's not making a ton of money this season. It's one of the things that made him really appealing
yeah.
as a trade that you can go out and get. But I can see a deal that happens that entices Freddie to not go to free agency by paying him more this season. And so I would expect something like that is what it's going to take. I would expect a minimum of a 5 year deal. And I would expect that this is a guy that David Stearns is willing to do that for because this is a guy that he's known since he was a teenager, right? And this guy he's negotiated multiple contracts with. His initial contract, his extension with the Brewers. This is
Mhm.
a guy that I think David Stearns is going to be willing to go out and do that for, and he absolutely should. We need to see Freddy Peralta here, and being that guy that we could rely on to that Nolan McLean can rely on to learn from a legitimate front end starter. It needs to happen.
Yeah. Speaking of relying, let's hope we can rely on this guy. Devin Williams threw in this game. It's his first spring training appearance that he had. He let up a leadoff home run. Okay. I think it was the first pitch. Devin Williams also is tinkering with a cutter, the same exact pitch that we just kind of talked about with Jonah Tong. Devin Williams was asked about it, and basically he was like, yeah, I kind of tried getting that ball over as a cutter, like just getting a strike on this kid who hit the home run is this kid, JJ Weatherholt for the Cardinals. He's a top 5 prospect, not in the Cardinal system. He's a top 5 prospect in all of baseball. A little nerding out. He's on my fantasy team as one of my minor leaguers that I have over here. That's why I know a little bit about him. So he's definitely someone that in baseball, he's highly regarded. Still not something that you like to see from Devin Williams. But again, I'm not freaking out about this. Stefan, what do you think about Devin?
Yeah, Devin looked good in the inning that he threw. Obviously, he gave up a home run. Don't panic here, Met fans. First pitch home run to a top prospect who crushed the ball off of him. That's a nothing burger. Don't worry about it. I heard Craig Carton on the radio as I was driving home talking about how Devin Williams blew a save today. Like it's not like Craig. I don't even know what you're talking about, buddy. It wasn't a save situation. It's spring training. It's the first pitch, and then he went out there and threw a solid inning, and that's what you want to see, right? You want to see that Devin Williams doesn't get shook by someone hitting a home run off of him to the point where it ruins his entire career.
He threw
Wait,
in the
hold on.
fourth inning. He threw right after Freddie. Like it was Freddie and then Devin Williams that came in the fourth inning.
Yeah, yeah.
Easy done.
So Devin Williams is going to be fine, Met fans. He was able to bounce back. He didn't then let up 5 hits after JJ Weatherholt hit that home run off of him. He shut down that inning, did what he needed to do, went out there and did his thing. So
No doubt.
expect Devin Williams is going to be totally fine.
Yeah, another guy I want to highlight again. We talked about him earlier in the pod. Brazoban again threw another scoreless inning. He had 2 strikeouts in this. He let up a hit, but he looked again like another solid outing from a guy that has just been solid for the Mets over the last couple of years. So wanted to highlight him. Brazoban looking pretty decent in spring training. He is definitely vying for an opening day roster spot. And so let's hope that continues down this line because I don't want to say I trust this guy, but he is someone that if he comes into the game, I'm like, all right, I'm okay. How about offensively, Stefan? What do you got here? Any like highlights that you want to talk about?
Yeah, Justin, you mentioned it earlier. MJ Melendez hit 2 home runs in this game. Is he going to win the starting right field job? I don't think so, because I do think Carson Benge, like I said, is going to get every opportunity to do so. But him and Mike Tauchman are in a head-to-head battle for that outfield spot. And both of them are making their case. MJ Melendez is looking real strong in that right field competition. MJ Melendez is now 4 for 11 on this young spring season. 1 double, 2 home runs, 5 RBIs. He's got an OPS of 1.364. He's got 2 strikeouts, 11 at bats. MJ Melendez is looking real good, and the Mets are clearly giving him a shot here. He's gotten the most at bats of any Met player in spring training so far with 11.
Yeah, I know MJ Melendez had an interview. He talked about like those 2 home runs, but he also talked about the Mets organization and how essentially, he was not surprised because he knew that the Mets were a first-class organization in terms of like analytics. But it was nice to see what he said was that he talked about how the Mets and Melendez, that they're trying to unlock some stuff with him, and their analytics department kind of are tweaking some things for him, and he's working with them. So he's a guy that like believes in the analytics. He's a guy that believes in, the Mets analytics process. And so maybe they made a little tweak because he's a guy that's hit 25 home runs in the regular season for the Royals a couple of years ago. So he can bounce around the diamond. I think he's a super utility guy. I think he's played catcher before. I know that's weird. He can catch. He can play outfield, right? He has a little bit of experience at first base as well. So I'm not saying that MJ Melendez is going to make this team, but having that versatility definitely gives him another like leg up in this competition. And so it's really nice to see him getting off to a good start. And I think we got AJ Ewing also, Stefan. What we got with this guy?
Yeah, so AJ Ewing is another guy, another dark horse here. I don't think that AJ Ewing is making this major league team. He is one of our top prospects in the system, but he has made he's made some noise this spring that may be on the bubble of like we need to start paying a little bit more attention to what AJ Ewing is doing. So he had a home run in this game. He had 2 at bats where he crushed the ball 106 miles an hour off the bat. So far in the spring, AJ Ewing is 3 for 6, a double, a home run, 4 RBIs, 1 strikeout in 6 at bats, 1.611 OPS.
He's got a 1,600 OPS. By the way, for reference, the only player last year that had above 1,000 OPS was Aaron Judge. We are not saying AJ Ewing is Aaron Judge, but just to give you guys a little bit of reference, right? We're nerding out a little bit with like OPS and statistics and whatnot, like what that actually means. Juan Soto had like around a 900 OPS last year, right, for it. So he, that's kind of like where the bar is at in terms of like what we're talking about when we mention those types of stats over here. But AJ Ewing again, beatster guy. One of the things that like they talked about was like, does he have power? Can he like square up at baseball? And the fact that he hit 2 balls 106 miles per hour off the bat, that's definitely squaring up the baseball. So maybe he's going to be a guy that's going to take a step forward in the minor leagues this year. Another young talent coming through this system, and it's really exciting to see what David Stearns and the Mets are building down there.
Yeah, for sure, Justin. And we're going to get close to the end of this podcast here. We've been going for about an hour now. We've been talking about this right field competition a lot. We talked about Tauchman. He's only had 3 at-bats so far this spring. Carson Benge, he's batting 400 in his 10 at-bats so far this spring. Cristian Pache is a name that I wanted to highlight as like a guy we didn't think potentially had a shot of doing anything, making this major league roster. Cristian Pache, and we talked about what OPS means, right? 1,600 for AJ Ewing, and that being really extraordinarily high. Cristian Pache's OPS right now is 1,800. He is 7 for 10 on the season with a double, a home run, an RBI. He struck out 3 times. He's gotten the second most at-bats of any player in the Mets spring training right now. So clearly they're taking a longer look at him than there are at Mike Tauchman. And so maybe he's a guy we should be talking about.
Yeah, again, someone that's been in the major leagues for the last like 5 years. He's bounced around. He's played for a ton of different clubs. Okay. Another depth piece that we're seeing over here, someone that maybe if there's injuries, barring injuries, but guys do get hot. Guys definitely do like start outperforming what their previous means were. And so who knows? They clearly signed this guy to a minor league contract for a reason. They saw something in him that potentially could be. Cristian Pache, wasn't he a top prospect a few years ago? Like I'm talking like a top 5 baseball prospect, not just like in an organization. I kind of remember that name when we were nerding out, when we were doing a little fantasy baseball.
Yeah, he definitely was a guy who had the potential, and maybe that potential is coming to fruition now. Or maybe he's just gotten off to a hot streak in 10 at-bats, right? So we're not going to make something into more than what it is. Samira, you want to say hi? Clearly you want to be on the podcast. Our
Hey, Sammy.
reporter during Met spring training, interviewing fans at spring training. Want to say hi? Okay. Daddy's going to wrap up now, okay? And yeah, so this right field competition maybe has some dark horse candidates coming out of nowhere.
No doubt. Last thing we're going to talk about, there's not a competition for shortstop. Francisco Lindor is our shortstop, but there's a competition for potentially for a few games for our shortstop. And a guy, Greg Kessinger, again, was just another name that was mentioned by David Stearns and Mendoza about someone that potentially could make this opening day roster if Lindor is not available. He left Friday's game with a left knee injury. Mendoza talked about how it doesn't look great. He's going to get a scan on that. If the manager's coming out saying it doesn't look great, he's getting a scan on it. Unfortunately, Greg Kessinger probably tore something in there, and he's probably not going to make this opening day roster. And even if, let's say, it's not torn, the fact that he's got to get this scan, them talking about not being great, he most likely is not going to be back for spring training, and so he's pretty much out of that competition.
Yeah. We're gonna wish Greg Kessinger a speedy recovery. You obviously never want to see a guy get injured. And this is sounding like it's in the makings of being a pretty bad injury for him. In terms of that competition that you were just talking about, Justin, there are, I guess, 4 other guys from the list of names that David Stearns gave as potential replacements. Brujan, we talked about, is 3 for 8 on the young season. Jackson Clough is 2 for 7 on this young season. Christian Arroyo, 3 for 9. And then Ronnie Mauricio is batting 300, 3 for 10. 1,000 OPS on the season. What I want to highlight with Ronnie Mauricio before we close out, Justin, 0 strikeouts.
You love Ronnie.
I think he's super talented, dude. He's a top prospect. He was a top prospect for a reason. He struck out 0 times in 10 at-bats. Putting the bat on the ball is what this Met team is looking to do, and he's clearly doing that, and he's doing it with authority.
Yeah. Listen, I like Ronnie. I hope he becomes a successful player for the Mets. What can't happen has happened last year was you brought this guy up and then you didn't play him and he sat on the bench for months. And that is what I just don't believe that the Mets are going to be using him to open the season when you have so many guys that are currently on this roster that can play similar roles that Ronnie Mauricio can play. Like, you got Brett Beatty. You have Mark Vientos. You have guys like MJ Melendez now, who, again, let's say these guys make the opening day roster. Brett Beatty and Mark Vientos are going to make the opening day roster. I just don't believe that they're going to bring Ronnie Mauricio up unless they're saying this guy is going to be our everyday DH. And again, that's still not really developing this guy properly because he's not playing a position defensively. And so that is my only thing with it. I'm not saying Ronnie Mauricio is not going to definitely make this our opening day roster. I just feel like the Mets went into the offseason saying we screwed up with that. Right? That was a huge mess up. We know that. We identified that. We can't do that again to this kid and not develop him properly. And so unless they're giving him some type of starting role on this team, he's going to be in the minor leagues.
I'm not doubting that he's going to be in the minor leagues, and I'm not saying he shouldn't be getting everyday consistent at-bats. If he's going to make this team, it's because he's going to get those at-bats in some way or another. I'm not so much worried about the defense. The Mets don't even know what Ronnie Mauricio's position is, right? And that's indicative of a guy that's not an elite defender at any position. And so maybe he is a guy that should step up and be a full-time DH for this team if a guy who, I love Mark Vientos. If Mark Vientos is not going to get in that bet in spring training and Ronnie Mauricio is going to hit 300 with a 1,000 OPS and not strike out, it's something for the Mets to consider. And then when that time comes where they can't get him those consistent at-bats, you use the option. And that's what I've been saying for the last week.
Yeah. I just feel like with the Ronnie Mauricio, last thing I'll say with this is, I think he's going to be a guy that they're going to use if there's a major injury. And if Ronnie Mauricio is starting for this team, I think a lot of us are upset because I think it's an injury to either Francisco Lindor or Bo Bichette, and not just like hey, I'm out for a hamate bone and I'm going to miss 3 games. Like, I'm talking like a major injury from one of those two guys. And so let's hope that obviously doesn't happen. Hopefully Ronnie Mauricio continues to hit. I'm with you on that. You got to start your best players and put this major league roster in the best position that you possibly can. But that is definitely, that competition is definitely competition. As we get closer to the end of the spring training, we'll definitely break down what the 26-man roster is going to look like. We did at the beginning of spring training, and we already, I think, predicted wrong for some of those guys. Like, I think all of us had Alzolay in that 26-man roster, and that's clearly not true. Like, David Stearns came out and said Alzolay is going to start in the minor leagues. And so when we get closer to the end of spring training, the beginning of this regular season, we'll definitely have a pod where we break down the 26-man roster. The bullpen is definitely one thing, but there's a couple of bench spots with this Brujan, MJ Melendez, and this right field competition going.
For sure. That's going to close us out here on this podcast, Met fans. Continue to like, follow, and subscribe to Meet the Mets Fans podcast. And wrap it up here. Let's go Mets. Put this one on the books, Justin.
Let's go Mets. Let's hey, Met fans, cross your fingers, no injuries, right? That's the only thing that we're looking for in these spring training games, okay?
Name of the game.
It's nice to see our starting pitchers, right, throw well. It's nice to see some of our guys hitting. Every day I just look at it and say, anyone get hurt? No? Cool. Keep it pushing. All right, so.
Let's go.
Meet the Mets fans, voices rising up from the stands. Hear their cheers, hear their groans, feel their highs, feel their moans. Stories untold now on the mic. Mets fans unite.